record. And now we're very happy to welcome the Reverend Susyn Reeves.
And I'm very happy to be here. And I have thought about this topic and thought about this topic because I have a tendency of saying yes when I'm asked to speak here without necessarily paying attention to what the topic is, because it's just such a treat. And I get to focus on a topic for often more than a month. So when I went to put this in my calendar, I saw that it was Mother's Day. So it was clear to me that mother had to be part of the word. So I invite you to just take a moment to invite that mother energy, that energy of unconditional love, the energy of compassion, the energy that is always available for us, an energy that some of us need to use in order to reparent ourselves for those parts of us that have been wounded and that are calling out for love, attention, and our compassion. And so, mother popped into my mind. And so, happy Mother's Day to all of us who are mothers, to all of us who have access, each and every one of us having access to the mother energy. And I thought about my own mother this morning, who in December will be 20 years since she passed on, died, transitioned, crossed over. And what she has become for me during these close to 20 years is a guardian angel. And she pops up at the most perfect times in a dream, in a thought. And I have no doubt that whatever word she says to me in sometimes just a nanosecond, that I can trust that because it's beyond the relationship of our personalities. When I would often just want to do the opposite of what she said, just because she was my mother. So that's one of the words. The other is when I saw this topic, I thought of Don Miguel Ruiz, who I apprenticed with for 2.5 years, and his first agreement, which is be impeccable with your word. So I got out my book and I looked to see what he said. And one of the things in it is your word is the power you have to create. Your word is the gift that comes directly from God. And then he quotes the Gospel of John that's in the Bible. And Mark spoke of this also last week. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word is God. And I have to admit that when I first read that, I really didn't get it. And this is true for me with so many spiritual principles, spiritual laws, qualities that are expressions of love. I don't really get them all the time right away. And when I read this again recently, I thought, now I get it, or I get the iteration that it is for me at this moment. And it is, and the word is God, that energy of creation, that energy that responds with a yes to whatever our dominant thoughts, our dominant words, charged with emotional energy, spoken of with authority, and acted on with faith. We get a yes. And so our words become crucial, become important because they are creating our experience in the moment. And how many of us are often disconnected from the words that we're saying and the impact those words have on our experience. How many times have you called yourself stupid? And it's become so automatic that you really don't know in the moment when it pops out on automatic that you are feeding a programming into yourself. You are giving your eyes, both that inner eye and your physical eyes, a way of seeing yourself. So then I started thinking about the word love. I thought, oh, I can talk about mother love. And I decided I want to tell you a story about the word love. And it's a story from my life. I was a desired, loved child. And yet, and some of you have heard this, when I was 3 and my mom had to go into the hospital, my parents decided it would be best for me to stay with my grandparents who loved me. But I'd never been away from my family for an overnight. And leaving my mother in a giant Manhattan hospital, she's crying as she's hugging me. I really don't know what's going on. The meaning that I gave to that circumstance, far below my conscious awareness, was that there was something wrong with me. I wasn't loved. And well, I was originally going to stay with my grandparents for about 2 weeks because in the 50s, when you went into the hospital for surgery, you could stay there for a long time. But I was sent home earlier. And years later, when I spoke to my mother about this, she said a different child returned home. While I was carefree and singing and dancing all the time before I left, when I got home, I was sullen. I didn't talk a lot. And that notion that I wasn't loved continued to grow in my life. And it grew so much that when I was a teenager, I decided very consciously that I wasn't loved, that I didn't know what love was, and that I was going to eliminate that word from my vocabulary. I'll give you an example of how this worked. I was in camp in the Berkshires during the summer with a transistor radio, listening to the Beatles, walking down a path in camp, and a Beatles song came on. And I turned to the friend I was walking with and I said, I love this song. And then I immediately said out loud, no, I don't mean I love this song. I mean, I like it. And so, for those of you who have been in any courses about the power of our words, and when you notice that you say something that really isn't a true reflection of who you want to be, that you say cancel, cancel, and mindfully choose different words. Well, I hadn't been in any courses about this at the time, but I consciously eliminated for years the word from my vocabulary. So that when I was away at camp, and my parents wrote to me, my mother wrote to me frequently, I'd write back and I'd be in this major dilemma about whether to sign it with love. And then this big dilemma of later in my life when I fell in love with my college sweetheart and we decided to get married, I really didn't know if I knew what that word meant. And then I started going to workshops on self-development and personal growth and various therapies and started being a therapist and doing that work. And slowly I allowed that word back into my vocabulary. Still initially very cautious about when I said it. And in my most recent book, which is about healing our hearts, which is about love, I realized that when the love that I'm talking about is greater than romantic love, is kind of captures the fullness of the spiritual depth of mother love, but that it really it needed a capital L. And so I had to learn what that meant. And what I encourage you is choose a word that you want to embody more fully, a word that you want to offer the vibration of as you exhale and as your energy becomes part of the collective consciousness. And explore the word, what you like about the word, what conditions you put on using the word. Many of us have conditions on who we love, who we forgive, who we have compassion for. And every word has multiple meanings, triggers various energies in us. And so when we use our word to create our personal world and contribute to the larger world, we're asked to do it mindfully. That is the gift of science of the mind. It is the power of our thoughts. And what are thoughts? They're words that may not have been expressed yet. And the words we speak carry an energy, and they define and create our life. And so I ask you now, if I was with you, by this time you'd have this charm, this little heart that says love on both sides. But whether or not love is your word, I invite you to make a commitment to yourself out of that mother love that you have for yourself, to be mindful of your language, to be mindful of your words, and to know right now, more deeply than you have ever known before, that the God of creation, the energy of creation, is alive in you. And this creative energy embraces your words. And remember that our thoughts, charged with emotional energy, both what we consider to be positive energy as well as what we consider to be negative energy, our words charged with our dominant energetic vibration, then spoken of with authority. You are the author, and acted on with conviction, with faith, is what you create in your life. And we are always creating. So on this Mother's Day, just right now, give yourself a hug and letting this love, letting this hug represent heartfelt, unconditional gratitude for the fullness of the being you are. Thank you. I wish you love with a capital L.